Buenas tardes, good afternoon. I'm sorry, but I will speak in English. I would like to start with the part of the contemporary use of space in Venice by musicians. But this start has roots in the past. In fact, following the heritage of the great composer of the 15th century, like Andrea and Giovanni Gabrieli and Adrian Villaert, whom explored the Venetian spaces with composition for double choir and two organs in the churches of San Marco, for example, of the Frari of the Redentore. The 20th and 21st centuries see Venice in the center of articulated researches on space and music. Beginning with the work by Luigi Nono for his Prometeo, San Lorenzo, now deconsecrated, is the church who hosted the great wooden ship, an ark designed by Renzo Piano, especially for the Prometeo by Luigi Nono. You can see it in a model here. During a conversation between the composer Luigi Nono and the philosopher Massimo Cacciari, who wrote the libretto for the Prometeo, a conversation collected by Michele Bertaggia and published in 1984, while the tragedy of the Listen, this is the subtitle of Prometeo, it was in progress. The Prometeo was a work commissioned by the Venice Biennale and co-produced with the Teatro alla Scala in Milan. The two authors speak of places, architectures, spaces. They speak on how the practice of opera and concert is fossilized in the Italian theater, in the frontality of the stage, and there are no listening places that allow other kinds of listening. And questo luogo, I quote, I speak Italian, the original language, e questo luogo è principalmente Venezia, un sistema complesso che offre esattamente quell'ascolto pluridirezionale di cui si diceva. I suoni delle campane si diffondono in varie direzioni, alcuni si sommano, vengono trasportati dall'acqua, trasmessi dai canali, altri svaniscono quasi completamente, altri si rapportano in vario modo ad altri segnali dalla laguna e della città stessa. Venezia è un multiverso acustico, assolutamente contrario al sistema egemone di trasmissione e di ascolto del suono a cui siamo abituati da secoli. Ma la vita quotidiana, nella sua dimensione più naturale, conserva possibilità contraddicenti la nostra percezione più consapevole, la quale ha scelto soltanto alcune dimensioni fondamentali, trascurando tutte le altre. E però ciò significa anche che mentre si va all'opera o al concerto idolatrando quelle uniche dimensioni di ascolto, nello stesso tempo, naturalmente, si continua l'esperienza di quest'altro multiverso. Si tratta allora quasi di un'urgenza di risveglio a questa maggiore ricchezza naturale. Luigi Nono had a dream to compose for the Basilica of San Marco, for its spaces, for its resonances, a dream that will only come true after his death. In 1992, indeed, in a concert that activates the memory thanks to the presence of some of the authors so loved by Nono, Gabrielis and Claudio Merulo, this concert is the ideal moment of convergence of past and present, of a future that has its roots in particular sonority of Venice, timeless. Venice trained us listen because it has sounds usually not perceived, because the awareness, la conciencia, keyword in much literature devoted to listening. The awareness of certain sounds, certain music, is much greater in a city whose sounds have less mechanical/technological origins than in any other city in the world, at least in the West. Venice trains us to listen because immerses us in it.
Come è possibile percepire veramente varie qualità di suono? Questo è fondamentale per me, parlare della qualità, non tanto della sostanza del suono. Tipi di suoni, tipi di arrivo, di partenza, come si sente questa specie di ostinato di una sirena.
¿Cómo puedes percibir verdaderamente varias cualidades del sonido? Esto es fundamental para mí, hablar de calidad, no tanto de la sustancia del sonido. Tipos de sonidos, tipo de llegada que comienzan cuando escuchas este tipo de obstinado de una sirena muy lejos, eso continua.
Lontanissima che continua. Alle volte quando c'è la nebbia, ci sono le varie campane che segnano le isole, c'è come un
hay
don,
varias campanas que marcan las islas.
Don continuo, e si vengono a creare dei campi sonori di una magia senza fine.
Y vengo a crear campos de sonido de una magia sin fine.
Questo porta anche la necessità di
Esto también lleva a la necesidad de desarrollar mucho más escucha, la capacidad de escuchar y captar incluso estos sonidos, porque estos son realmente sonidos, junto con estos sonidos que se está produciendo, con esto, con las gaviotas, con las voces que a veces vienen a través de esto, con estos sonidos del trabajo.
C'è la varietà
Aquí
del suono,
está la variedad de sonido, la variedad de calidad, la combinación, la composición en el espacio, sobre el agua,
dei muri,
le paredes, le reverberaciones,
delle gibigiane, tutto questo che crea veramente secondo me un pensare la musica in modo totalmente distinto dalla musica tecnica,
desde
il
música
sentirla
académica.
veramente come
Però realmente sintiéndola come un elemento della vita, un elemento del oído, dell'alma, una pulsación de sentimientos vivos.
Vivi, quella che va chiamata la magia.
Lo que debería llamarse magia.
La vera magia, il vero mistero.
La verdadera magia, il verdadero mistero. Ed este espacio veneciano.
E tutto avviene tutto in modo...
Todo succede sin previo avviso.
Senza avvertire. È come all'inizio, una delle mie manie, all'inizio
como
di Mahler,
una de mis peculiaridades, el comienzo de la sinfonía
sempre mi sono trovato da quando...
Premiera de Mahler.
Anche adesso che sento mi trovo già dentro.
En la que nos encontramos dentro, incluso aquí siempre me he encontrado, incluso ahora, ya me encuentro en esta música. Being inside music, as in the beginning of the first symphony of Mahler. During the work in progress of Prometeo, there was a phase of experimentation with the generation of live synthetic sounds by means of the 4E system, the prototype of the 4X used by Pierre Boulez for the spatialization of réponse sounds, which provided for the diffusion of sound from under the audience. The first experiments contemplate precisely the simulation of the sonorities of the first symphony by Mahler. Just to be immersed in sound and for an architectural space not conventional with respect to the traditional music space, Renzo Piano builds for Nono a structure that was contained within the church. The musical research of Nono was very close to the performance space. About San Lorenzo, Nono says, io mi trovo adesso, pensando Prometeo, in una condizione particolare. Ora io mi sento attualmente come se la mia testa fosse San Lorenzo. Mi sento occupare e cerco anche di lasciarmi occupare completamente dallo spazio della chiesa di San Lorenzo e dai suoi silenzi. E ascoltando tutto ciò cerco di trovare i suoni che possono leggere, scoprire quello spazio e quei silenzi, i suoni che poi diventeranno Prometeo. Meditation of Nono on space, however, is much more extensive, full of history and of Venetian music and not. Speaking of the temples of music, some of which we saw in the day before yesterday's slides, Nono underlines che in quasi tutti i cori, le cantorie, gli organi erano disposti a mezza altezza. La musica era eseguita nello spazio in alto. La musica si dava dunque a differenti altezze, rispondendo a differenti geometrie che apparentemente sconvolgevano la composizione. E invece la composizione era pensata, costruita proprio per e con quelle geometrie. Si consideri ad esempio la tecnica compositiva di Giovanni Gabrieli. La scrittura musicale è totalmente differente se pensata per 5 cori oppure un coro a 4 voci. L'unità dello spazio geometrizzato si sconvolgeva. In questi luoghi, lungo le generatrici di geometria polivalenti, nella Basilica di San Marco, tu vai, cammini e scopri spazi sempre nuovi, ma tu li senti, oltre che leggerli, li ascolti anche se non c'è musica. The sounds create paths. Whether the path of the performance moving within the floor space around the audience are the path that are realized by means of the electroacoustic systems. In this slide, we can see a sketch on the possible movements of the sound that could be obtained with the halophone, the spatializing use at the studio of Freiburg, where Nono carried out its sound research. Sound research that had begun a few years earlier after composing Sofferte Onde Serene, a piece for piano and magnetic tape to be remembered as the reflections on listening space around us were already present in those years. Nono wrote in linear notes for the Deutsche Grammophon disc containing the recording of pièce. Alla mia casa, alla Giudecca in Venezia, giungono continuamente suoni di campane varie, variamente ribattute, variamente significati, di giorno e di notte, attraverso la nebbia e con il sole. Sono segnali di vita sulla laguna, sul mare, inviti al lavoro, alla meditazione, avvertimenti. We listen now to a fragment of only the magnetic tape in which we can hear piano sounds manipulated recalling the tolling of bells. Another theme dear to Nono is, and will, later Sofferte Onde Serene, that of confusion. Since the sounds arrive at Venice confused, dislocated, mixed, as we can sense from listening to the same passage with the live piano also. particular sounds of Venice inspired many works of many artists, not necessarily musicians. Among these, I want to remain the installation by Bill Fontana in 1999, also based on the Confusion. Sounds from 12 different typical Venetian places are repeated in a symbolic space, the Punta della Dogana. The sounds dispersed in the lagoon are condensed in a single site. Thanks to the recording and sound diffusion technologies, the distance effects are cancelled or dilated, giving the impression of being in a known place, an acoustic utopia. Sorry? Bill Fontana is a sound artist working all around the world, and he uses a lot of different spaces with video, sounds, polymorphic artists. Thanks to the recording and sound diffusion technologies, the distance effects are cancelled or dilated, giving the impression of being in a known place, an acoustic utopia. After the crash, something happened. Sorry? Bill Fontana is a sound artist working all around the world, and he uses a lot of different spaces with video, sounds,
Acoustical Visions of Venice was a live audio collage of sounds that was presented in 1999 at the Venice Biennale. Devoid of automobiles, Venice has a distinctive sonic character. Sounds of everyday life have a clarity and transparency, untarnished by the background noise common to urban environments. Sounds collected from 12 key sites within the city were transmitted simultaneously in real time to a single site, the Punta della Dogana, where one had commanding views of a city that seems to rise out of the water as if from another era. As the bells from the towers of San Marco and San Giorgio Maggiore echoed through the landscape, the relationship of the speed of sound to the speed of light showed itself in a remarkable way. A multi-dimensional acoustic space was created at the Dogana as the transmitted sounds arrived before the natural acoustic sounds, creating a spatially dynamic effect.
Obviously, it's impossible to recreate here this effect because of the distance, the real distance of the sound produced and the reproduction by the radio system. So the effect that you can hear the sound before it arrives. But Acoustical Utopia is also the motet Spem in Alium by Thomas Tallis. This motet is remembered also by Luigi Nono for its special character, which in stereo recordings, frontal, only gives back a portion of the acoustic reality of performance by live. The multidimensionality of contemporary music and some polychoral music, such as Tallis, is an unsolved problem in today's recordings. Nono says, despite the stereo effect projected to tape, this music is crushed and plenty of listening will be lost. In a conference in France in 1987, Nono noted that Thomas Tallis' Spem Inalium explores acoustic space and brings it to life, enabling it to sing. Tallis makes space itself become singing. During the Architecture Biennale in 2010, dimensionality of contemporary music and some polychoral music, such as Tallis, is an unsolved problem in today's recordings. Nono says, inside the Arsenale has been proposed a 2001 work by Janet Cardiff, the 40-part motet, a reworking of the motet quoted by Nono. In this installation, on the contrary of one by Bill Fontana, the music is site unspecific, if I can say so. But every space in which the 40 separate voices installation was performed is reborn to a new life. A new acoustical life where we can follow each singer in a walking inside the surrounding choirs. Has been proposed a 2001 work by Janet loudspeaker reproduce one single voice of the 40 voices of the choir. Try to reproduce what a visitor can hear during his walking inside our space. The complex polyphonic writing is designed for a dislocation of the choirs far between them, so as to be able to perceive each proposal response. A complex polyphonic writing like that, precise and rigorous, was by Silvia Fômina, which for her work in progress, What Remains, for vocal, performance soloist, harpsichord and piano, one performer, wind instrument and strings live plus an orchestra in space, plans the spatialization of an orchestra pre-recorded on 8 single tracks, whose writing is functional to the space polyphony that is created with the distribution of the speakers around the audience. For the performance held in the concert hall of the Conservatory of Venice in June 10th, 2015, in a reduced form, the setup of the speakers was the following. You can hear now the movement of sounds in this 8-channel setup today. The number of the channels the loudspeakers are numbered 1, 2, 3, and so on. And you can see the movement of sound thanks to the waveform represented is here, in which all tracks sound contemporary, and therefore the listener is surrounded, dived in the sound, while other times when the sound rotates around the audience or is displaced in such a way as to bring out more clearly the polyphony that the frontal location does not make it possible. Now we hear a fragment, this fragment, about this. Loudspeakers are numbered 1, 2, 3, and so on. Listen with you to another example at the end, which well represents the dispersion and rarefaction, both in time and frequency space. Sliding along the multitaxation, we can also note how space is an essential compositional parameter in Silvia Fômina, and we also see the subtle thinning of the sound spectrum, the increase of the silent periods, the resonance of the sound of the piano, who in the front is taken up by the strings and rotated around the audience. Those sounds are not in the tape, obviously. A writing whole fixed already is also which one of Trevor Wishart, which in Venice were performed the Italian premiere of 2 works, Encounters in the Republic of Heaven at the Conservatory Concert Hall and Supernova at the Sales Tower in the Arsenal. Encounters in the Republic of Heaven The subtitle is All the Colors of Speech, is an 8-channel sound surround piece based on speaking voices recorded in the northeast of England, where Trevor Wishart was Arts Council England Composers in Residence from October 1st, 2006 to September 2009, based at the University of Durham. The piece is constructed in 4 acts of approximately 20 minutes each, combining portraits of individual speakers accompanied by sounds and imaginary instruments derived from the voices themselves, with computer animation of the entire community of voices, speech that valses, speech that locks in harmony, clouds of speech that circle the audience, culminating with speech that transforms into song. The piece was completed on January 1st, 2011. We can hear a section with a cloud of speech that circles the audience. Based at the University of Durham. The piece is constructed in 4 acts of approximately 20 minutes each, combining portraits of individual speakers accompanied by sounds and imaginary instruments derived from the voices themselves, with computer animation of the entire community of voices, speech that valses, speech that locks in harmony, clouds of speech that circle the audience, culminating with speech that transforms into song. The piece was completed on January 1st, 2011. We can hear a section with a cloud of speech that circles the audience.
Went into the wars.
And because I'm not a professional, I wonder how's one of this would be that would kind of be yes.
Yes.
No.
You travelled to Yemen went into the school war.
That was a kind
I mean, this would be what, early 80s?
I feel good to
And Facebook it moved. Couple of these good years.
They were getting some of the bars, which was that's the language.
Yes.
Couple of these people. Good few years.
Yes,
but the nail of your English.
I wonder what happened to people get moved. Couple of these people.
the bars.
I think it would be fine.
The other piece by Wishart is a Supernova, part of The Secret Resonance of Things, a set of pieces exploring the musical possibilities of scientific data. Supernova is the first and converts the light spectrum of a supernova explosion and the spectra of the new elements generated into sound. I quote from a Trevor Wishart article. Supernova began as an open-ended research project at the University of Oxford to explore ways in which scientific and musical researchers might cooperate. Towards the end of the research period, I was put in contact with a PhD researcher who had collected all the available time series data on the internet as part of a comparative data analysis project, which he very kindly donated to me. I devised various interfaces allowing me to convert this data directly into waveforms, or to use it as control data for sounds from some other source. But although there are many and diverse ways to sonify such data, the problem was to find a musically satisfying reason for animating the data. I eventually focused my attention on light spectra. The idea would be to convert these into some kind of sonic spectrum equivalent. The spectrum of individual stars also tells us something about their material constituents, as each chemical element has its own characteristics light spectrum. As much of the interesting information in the spectrum, the absorption lines of the spectra of the created elements, emerge as it fades away to nothing, I decided to elaborate this aspect of the event by displaying the spectra of various chemical elements over the decaying tail of the supernova. These chemical signatures are then distributed over the 8-channel surround sound space as the sounds of the supernova decay towards zero. We can hear a fragment of this piece. We can see on the map the loudspeaker set for the performance in Venice inside an industrial building we use for cultural activities. In the same performance, a laptop ensemble, the Arazzi Laptop Ensemble, in this performance 18 laptops and a sound projectionist, played to improvisation over a set of pre-recorded sounds. The ensemble was interconnected over a local area network, and sounds and data were switching through it. A similar set of laptops performed a text score, or better, a sonic meditation by Pauline Oliveros, the American composer. The title of the guided improvisation is Environmental Dialogue. You can read the original text by Pauline Oliveros in the next 2 slides, adapted from an old text score of 1975 for that specific performance. The text score is a set of instructions, a set of prescriptions that guides the performance through mutual listening and reaction to the sound played / produced by the others, and by the resonance of the space. Paulinho Oliveros has devoted his whole life to listen, to explain to musicians, professionals, and amateurs. One of her texts is titled Modes of Attention and Awareness, stressing the importance of a listening attentive and aware. She has theorized the deep listening, and all her compositions, improvisations are sonic meditation. To meditate as much as possible, you must be immersed in the sound, being inside the sound. This ability can be reached if you are able to divest himself for all music superstructure acquired, and you let go without listening patterns, grids, cages. To facilitate this dive and this listening, the Venetian setup of environmental dialogue also included the use of the surrounding spaces of the concert hall. The two adjoining rooms where they were placed some performance and 2 loudspeakers, the monumental staircase, very reverberant, where they were placed a loudspeaker and a microphone. This is one of the room, this is the other, this is the staircase. But also it took advantage of the different levels available by placing some loudspeakers and even some performance high in the gallery surrounding the concert hall on the upper floor. But we can listen to Paulinho Oliveros' few observations about the soundscape and see the performance engaged in a rehearsal. Please pay attention to the first word. Venice is a very quiet place.
Venice is a very quiet place compared to where I grew up and where I live now. What is a soundscape? When I was born in 1932, so you can imagine I've been here almost a century. When we talk about soundscape, you know, it's a very political thing to work with and to investigate. When it got to 16 bits, then I could begin to transfer the control system to digital. But I kept my.
Okay, but As we have seen for the installation of Bir Fontana, not only the closed spaces are topics for the research of musicians or sound artists. Another outdoor space that saw the presence of music was the Virgin's Garden during the International Biennale of Music in 2012. We can see a little video about it. Loudspeakers were placed in an open space in a garden. No, not one composer. It's the sounds you hear are just some sound samples contained in a database that is connected to the system that control of the diffusion of the sound in the garden. Are loudspeaker. This ring is connected to the diffusion sound system to interact with the presence of the people. The system is a system projected by a team and uses a group of original musical compositions for this particular space. Those are the author, and the system was projected by Lorenzo Brusci and Simone Conforti. Open spaces as well as closed spaces. Different ways to have a sound experience, okay? But also a mix of both. During Beyond Entropy, a collateral event of the 12th International Architecture Exhibition in Venice, the Arazzi Laptop Ensemble had a performance where energy manifests itself through transformations. The mechanical energy, sound, is transformed into electromagnetic energy, recording and sampling, and vice versa, from processing in the digital domain of pre-recorded sounds to the diffusion of sounds in space. Similar processes are involved in sound synthesis and analysis, the study of acoustic spectrum energy distribution, for example. The Arazzi Laptop Ensemble brings together a group of electroacoustic performance composers who have a long-standing research experience on interactions among musicians and technology. We can listen a part of that performance in this video. The experience of the Arazzi Laptop Ensemble, which has been mentioned earlier in the setup of the concert of the Italian premiere of Supernova, if you remember, takes place in another unique Venetian space, the Hall of Arazzis. The Arazzis are the tapices on the wall, okay? At the Fondazione Giorgio Cini on the island of San Giorgio Maggiore. Inside this rectangular space, empty, is set up a multi-channel system that uses both the ability to have multiple floors in height. You can see, you have seen the gallery in the photo here. We can put inside here some loudspeakers. And both the outdoor areas and the adjacent rooms. We have placed a loudspeaker outside and a loudspeaker in another room to have the sense of a space, of an outer space. Each member of the ensemble intervened on sound with its processing algorithms, creating parallel to the natural sounds. The sounds material produced by each laptop was then spatialized or placed in space statically. Okay, finally, I would like to mention an ongoing project which makes Venice a great sound area, full of sounds to be collected and used in many different ways. It is an European project whose leader is Radio France Internationale, and the partners are the Association Bruxelles Nous Appartient, IGCOM, a high school of journalism based in Dakar, and the Conservatory of Music Benedetto Marcello of Venice. Each partner participates in the activities according to their own points of listening, obviously. The project includes the collections of a variety of sound material recorded in the 4 cities and the usage and catalogued and made available online through a website, through multiple websites, really, for different purposes: telling stories, activities, witness, documenting events, and create compositions, sound installation, processing, sampling. Venice will focus its research on the use of sounds for musical / compositional / performative purposes. Although no limits have been placed of sounds to be collected, given the characteristic of Venice, we will focus in particular on the sounds of the water, the sounds of bells, sounds that are still present in all cities. All the examples we have seen and heard are tied up by threads. I try to recall a few. First of all, the thread is the listening. Attentive listening, aware, that searches the detail, that sees 2 protagonists, the producer, the composer, and who he enjoys, the listener. Then the thread of the space that is made up, the thread of technologies that explore the analysis of the sound made by Nono by means of the sonoscope during his research in Freiburg, are crucial for his musical writing. Technologies who manipulate recorded sounds and sounds produced by live acoustic instruments, technologies that produce synthetic sounds and reproduce recorded sounds. technologies that operate on spaces, technologies that allow the performance to communicate with each other by exchanging information and data. The thread of the dive in the phenomenon that we perceive, both audible and visual, which perhaps is the true indicator of a change which scholars, even from other disciplines, are finding and following. I didn't speak about numerous of other site-specific or space-composed performances or spectacles. For example, I did not mention the opening concert of the 54th Biennale Musica in 2010, Don Giovanni in Venice, Labyrinth Opera, that involves the whole Palazzo Pisani, the Conservatory Palace, the largest palace of Venice after Palazzo Ducale, even its stairs, its lobbies, and its transit spaces, or the sound of the courtyard of Ca' Foscari University for the Art Nights event in 2014, or the spectacles inside the Basilica of the Frari with the conservatory students who have created several shows, sometimes also programmed into the program of the Music Biennale, etc., etc. Venice is a city bombed by the so-called events and has lost some precious silences and quiet aspect of its life. Thank you.